And one of the groups pushing for the maps to be redrawn is the Lone Star Project. It's a federal political action committee that seeks to make Democratic gains in Texas. And joining us now from San Antonio is its director, Matt Engel. Thanks so much for being on the show, Matt.
Hi, Karina. Happy to be here.
Well, from what you heard today, any indication early on from the judges that they'll rule in your favor and order new maps be drawn for 2018?
Well, I don't want to predict the judges precisely, but it was clear that they were very, very interested in listening very carefully to the testimony, particularly by former State Representative Trey Martinez-Fisher and the current State Representative and Chairman of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, Rafael Anchia, who laid out how the state has continued to discriminate against African-American and Hispanic voters and the belief that they did so with intent.
The state, of course, arguing that they should not be held liable for the 2013 maps currently in use since the court drew them, and they want to keep those in place. And I know you argue that they're meant to be temporary, as the other minority groups and Democratic groups are arguing. But if these judges drew them, as the state would argue, why not just keep those in place?
Well, technically, the court didn't draw that map. That map was drawn by a couple of renegade plaintiff groups back in 2013, and then along with the state of Texas. The court just approved that map as an interim map, and the court made very clear when they ordered that map that it was temporary, that the corrections that were in that map were based on preliminary evidence, and that it did not address a number of issues that the court needed to examine. And what we found just a few months ago when the court issued its final order on the 2011 map was that they agreed that the current map retains significant areas of discrimination. And then, of course, the most important thing was the court found that there was an intent to discriminate. And that intent, we believe, was carried forward into 2013, and we think it'll be proved out in this trial.
Of course, timing is a huge factor in all of this. What could this mean for 2018?
Well, it certainly is possible that we could have new congressional and state house map for the 2018 elections, but timing is important. This trial will last through the rest of this week. It'll be a 5-day trial, possibly going into Saturday. And then I think that the real question is whether or not the court gives a decision in the next 4 to 6 weeks. If they do, plenty of time for the state to appeal it and for there to be a determination from the Supreme Court as to whether they take it up. There would provide time for the legislature to redraw if they wanted to. Most people believe that the drop-dead date for a new map for the 2018 election would be around October 1st, between October 1st and October 10th. There is time to get a new map between now and then. So we definitely could see new maps for the State House and the Congress for the 2018 elections.
I know a lot of those local election officials are really urging them to get this done by October because of those deadlines. But if the eventual San Antonio decision is challenged, the case could then, of course, be kicked up to the Supreme Court, and that pushes things back further. How problematic does that become for candidates, as we saw back in 2012?
Well, it certainly, if the Supreme Court takes up the case and the decision is made to delay the filing deadlines or to push them forward, then it will create confusion. But I think it's very important that Texas have districts that abide by the Constitution and by the Voting Rights Act. It doesn't make sense for Texans to continue to vote in districts that the court believes are discriminatory. And so while I don't think that the decision will drag out, while I don't think there will be a delay, it's better for there to be a delay and a move in the election dates than there is for Texans to have to vote in illegal districts.
The court has mentioned several districts in particular, and if they do rule in your favor, what kind of Democratic gains are we talking about here? How many districts would you expect to be redrawn before next year?
Well, the thing to remember is that this is really not a partisan challenge. This is not a partisan gerrymander. This is a racial gerrymander. So what will happen in a new map is that the discriminatory features that take place in the state would be removed. believes that they will repair a district in Corpus Christi, that they will repair a district that discriminates against Latinos in the San Antonio area, and then also in the Austin area. And people who live in Austin, of course, know that the congressional maps are a travesty, and I think that they will repair that. And there's a possibility that they would actually repair some discrimination against African Americans and Hispanics in North Texas. If they do all of that, then that probably means that minorities in Texas will be able to elect their candidates of choice in at least 3 additional districts. And so when you repair for discrimination in Texas, for racial discrimination, then a lot of the partisan imbalance starts to take care of itself. That plays out in the state map, state House map in the same way.
I want to ask you lastly, because Republicans still likely going to have majorities and new maps are going to be drawn again very soon. So the ultimate goal here, really to put Texas back under federal preclearance?
Well, it certainly needs to be, because what we've seen is that the current Republican leadership in Texas uses discrimination against African Americans and Hispanics as a partisan tool. They see the demographics in Texas as clear as anybody else. They see that Latino population and African American population is growing several times the rate of Anglos. Rather than trying to reach out and expand their appeal to African Americans or Hispanics, they've taken the very cynical approach that they would rather suppress and undermine Hispanic and African American voting strength. As long as they're going to continue to do that, I think it's very important that there be some oversight from the federal government to make sure that citizens of color in Texas are treated fairly in redistricting.
Matt Engel, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And meanwhile, Governor